Okay, 6p. This was really quite extraordinary. Um, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the question was: concentrated markets are always better for the economy than non-concentrated markets. Discuss. A very, 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 very high proportion of you got this the wrong way around, and we didn't in the end penalise you particularly for this, but it's like Jesus, you want to get this right. Um, it's like a concentrated market is one with a high concentration ratio. So, in other words, if we take the 4 firm concentration ratio, in a concentrated market, that might be 80% or something. Yeah? Hence, concentrated markets are ones where the market power is concentrated in the hands of a few firms. Yeah, so hence, it's kind of all of the consumers are going to a small number of firms. So we're talking about, for this, we're talking about monopoly and oligopoly. Whereas non-concentrated markets, therefore, are ones where customers are spread between lots and lots of different firms because they're not concentrated in one. So therefore, here we're talking about perfect competition or monopolistic competition. Once you've got that straight, then the essay should be pretty straightforward. What you really do, there's how you would write this. I mean, it's really difficult actually to plan this in the sense that there are so many different routes. As those of you who know me will know, the way I tend to think that these are best approached is by kind of saying, well, what will it mean for efficiency? What will it mean for consumers, and what will it mean for the economy as a whole? So often a good plan is to compare something, to start off by, say, comparing monopoly with perfect competition. And then you can say, well, in monopoly, what we know is that there's this kind of money. We know that there's no pressure to respond to consumer needs, and there's no real pressure to keep costs down to their minimum level. So when the firm maximises its profits by producing at MC equals MR, it will neither be productively efficient nor will it be allocatively efficient. So it's not maximising welfare. It's not responding to consumers' needs because it doesn't need to. So there's a welfare loss there. But also, costs are higher than they need to be. In perfect competition, costs will be driven down to the minimum point of the average cost curve, and then here they're not. And you could draw a perfect competition diagram if you wanted to make that point clear. You could say here is the industry in perfect competition. That's marginal cost and that's marginal utility. So in perfect competition, welfare is maximised, so it's allocatively efficient. And in the long run, at least, we know that prices are driven down to the minimum point of the average cost curve. Therefore we're going to be both productively and allocatively efficient. And that seems to me, like a strong way of starting this off, because you're showing technical expertise. You're showing that you have a command of these theory of the firm diagrams. That you really understand some key concepts in economics. That's the route to A stars if you're looking for it. You can then talk about dynamic efficiency. Obviously monopoly and oligopoly firms, they have abnormal profits which can be reinvested into either new products or new process. And you could then think about, whereas in perfect competition, monopolistic competition, they don't. So hence, there's this sense that maybe over time, what's going to happen is that you're going to get much better outcomes in particularly oligopolies and possibly contestable monopolies. So I think that's definitely worth pursuing in that way. You could then kind of move on. You could use your dynamic efficiency to then jump towards the consumer. And again, you're looking to say, well, what is it? What are consumers interested in? They're interested in price and quality. And again, you could set I mean, there were quite a number of these essays that didn't actually have a theory of the firm diagram in them, and that doesn't seem like a very good idea. Again, what you could be saying is, let's suppose we've got some sort of monopoly or oligopoly. We know that in perfect competition, prices are going to be driven down to the minimum point of the average cost curve, whereas in monopoly or oligopoly, they're going to produce where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So hence, if you're arguing that in perfect competition prices would be down here, we can see that prices are going to be much higher in oligopoly monopoly, simply because there's barriers to entry, limited amounts of competition. And you could then go on to kind of talk about the possibility of collusion. And I think if, obviously there's a finite amount of things that can be said in the essay, but if you go down that route, you could then say, well, how likely is things like dynamic efficiency to occur? In collusive oligopolies, less likely. In competitive oligopolies, more likely, because they're trying to gain an edge over other firms. Same with quality. A lot's going to depend on, when we talk about a concentrated market, are we talking about a pure monopoly with no real competition at all? Are we talking about a working monopoly? And that's the sort of thing that's going to determine whether quality is going to be increased. You could contrast that again with perfect competition, where products are identical, there's no innovation and so on. So, and then finally, if I had time, obviously we are under a lot of time pressure on these things. Finally, I'd probably look at the economy as a whole. And that's usually, again, worth talking about. And again, you can link it to dynamic efficiency and economies of scale. Where we're talking about, well, look, if you've really got firms like Apple and Google and Samsung, then they're going to be contributors to growth. They're going to be contributors to exports. They're like to say, it's going to improve your trade balance, create jobs, and push GDP up. So most people are going to conclude that pure monopolies are a rotten idea, perfect competition is a rotten idea, but some sort of contestable monopoly that leads to MacBooks and kind of Samsung notes and so on and so forth. That's the sort of sector that we like, although it may vary, of course, by product and so on. But there are a hell of a lot of different ways of evaluating this. And if you look at the Mark scheme, it covers quite a lot of different sorts of issues, which you couldn't possibly cover all of. There's no way you can do it. But so therefore, having some sort of structure like this probably is the way to go. But for this essay, it's like, do not mix up concentrated and non-concentrated markets. It's a very bad idea.